Friday, the 15th day of June, year of our Lord 2012. Dr. DEAGLE is traveling, and we've agreed to fill in for him. And Ann, both of us were in contact with Dr. DEAGLE earlier today, and he has a particular subject he wanted to address, that having to do with radiation from Fukushima reactor number 4. Now, I've got your notes here in front of me, and just what is this all about, Ann?
Yeah, well, last week when Dr. Bill was in charge, and of course, you know, we can't substitute for him. We can only attempt.
All right. Well, there's only one Dr. Bill. That's true.
There's only one Dr. Bill. But anyway, he had announced at that time he was taking a trip, and that's why he's not on the radio today. And he was flying from San Diego to Portland, and he was going to take his Inspector Plus, and he was going to be monitoring the radiation during the flight. And I think he even said to the effect that if the radiation got too high during the flight, he was going to put an N95 mask, that's an NIOSH 95% a mask on his child and his daughter and his wife and himself. And so anyway, he posted the information during the flight on his website. And so he started out, I'll just briefly go over it, as people can go up to NutraMedical.com and read it. So it started out at San Diego International Airport at 22 to 36 counts per minute. At jet stream level, 30,000 feet, it was up at 1,200 counts per minute. And so essentially he said it rose steadily as he was on his way to Portland. And then when they landed, the reading at the tarmac in Portland was in the mid-20s counts per minute. So his analysis is for the trip was that probably what he was measuring when he was measuring the 1,200 counts per minute at 30,000 feet, that it was most probable the Fukushima high-altitude radiation fleas.
Right.
And he also said it's possible there was ionization of the air by ultraviolet.
Now, as a non-scientist, to me that says the oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide itself has become radioactive? Is that what that means?
Well, it's possible.
Really?
That's certainly possible. Yeah, the UV is that. For instance, the UV in the stratosphere knocks the oxygen molecule in half, and then it adds an oxygen molecule to an oxygen atom to the oxygen molecule to make a O3, which is ozone. So yes, that's called ionization. And it can happen with deep UV. So if deep UV were penetrating down to 30,000 feet, it's possible that, but that I would consider that probably not what was happening.
Well, tell us what a radiation flea is. I mean, it's not like the flea on your dog, obviously. What does that mean?
Yes. Well, the way that Chris from Delaware describes it is that it's a bunch of radioactive molecules that attach themselves to your clothing, and he says that when they go out the airlock, they pass over a radiation detector to make sure that they're not carrying out any radioactive particles. And in some cases, the detector will indicate that there's radiation. So, and the way it does that is that there's decay of those isotopes, and it sends out either an alpha, beta, gamma, or all three. And so then they go over them with a wand, and then if they can't find it, if they can't find the source of the radiation hit, then they call that a radiation flea. In other words, it's something that they know that the person is carrying out on their clothing someplace, but either the half-life is long enough, or, you know, the radioactive particles do not know what an XY plane is.
Right.
They radiate in all sorts of directions, And so when they're passing the wand over the person, it could be radiating out in a different direction, and they just can't find it.
Right.
So it's called a radiation flea. And what he's saying is that these airplanes cross the ocean, across the pole, and go into Japan. And of course, the pilots and the flight crew, they go out into Tokyo or wherever they land,
right.
and they pick up radiation on their clothing, and then when it's time for them to return, they carry it into the airplane, and some of those get knocked off, and they're embedded in the seats and in the walls and in the carpet especially. So
it seems like they would get sucked into the air filtration and air movement system of the aircraft also.
Well, I thought that they just recirculated the air. Are they sucking in?
Well, that's what I mean. It would get into that air recirculation system.
Well, that's right. Yeah, and it could get into the air recirculation system, and unless they're using HEPA filters and maintaining them, which we know that they are not, unless they're using something that has the capacity to filter like a NIOSH 95 or NIOSH 99 mask, those radioactive fleas will continue to stay in the airplane and expose the passengers on that flight and on the next flight and on the next flight and so on. So, and in fact, people can carry those radioactive fleas home with them. So this is a serious problem. He detected cesium-137 and strontium-90. Those are both of human health concern because they have half-lives of 30 years.
Right.
Strontium-90 is implicated in breast cancer. It goes to the bone and to milk, and it's also implicated in leukemia. The cesium-137, 30-year half-life, is absorbed like the body, is absorbed by the body like potassium, but of course the body can't use it like potassium, and so it ends up in the muscles. And so people that have heart problems might think that they have been exposed to cesium-137,
right,
which we all have after they did the above-ground testing in the 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Right.
Now, I-31 has a very short half-life, and probably is not medically significant, except that you would be breathing in the air, and so it would be inside your body.
Right.
Anyway, what Dr. Bill DEAGLE did after this trip, because he felt that the counts per minute were high, he sent a letter to Senator Wyden, and he says that with all the medical credits that he has earned over the years, MD, AA, EM, A4, AM, ACAM, and he says that this is urgent, and that the Fukushima radiation needs to be measured on all flights over the United States, including Alaska, and that they report that they have action points at 20,000 feet over 2.5 microsievert per hour, and again more action point at 4.0 microsievert per hour. So that what they want to do is, what he's suggesting is they collect air samples and create a chain of custody for radioisotopic analysis and radon type detection and for the duration of the flights. And so that if they could do that, and if they could do it real time, then they could map that into, on the internet, they could map it into a database, and then they would know whether hazmat procedures, one for the passengers, but also for the rainfall or dust that could be transmitted to the local FEMA police and public. So this is a very, he thought that there was enough radiation on his trip that he measured that he has already contacted Senator Wyden.
Well, good for him. Dr. Bill has done the right thing there. We have a break here, and everybody stay tuned. We'll be back after the break.
Well, obviously you can see I am still having all types of problems using the internet and doing my recordings. Well, that's the Dr. DEAGLE NUTRA medical report, and it is Ann Morrison and Robert Felix, and they are hosting tonight and doing major reports on Fukushima. It's about 3 a.m. This is one for the record, and I wanted you guys to hear this. So all you need to do is not stare at the computer, obviously, and just use this as a radio program. That's the best way I can let you know about things, and you don't just sit there staring at a screen. Also, I'll turn it off again when they come back. They're going to talk about the smart meters, and what else? Nothing but problems trying to do uploads tonight. I don't know why, but heads up, if you're a producer of a channel, and we'll get right back. Let's see if they're back yet.
The book is
No, it's going to be a few commercials. So, I did post a breaking news earlier. You might want to check out the one for the record on June 16th. Right now, we're actually, since it's Eastern Standard Time, it's June 17th right now. And I just didn't want you to miss what they had to say. Alrighty then, I'm going to blank out the screen, and you can go ahead and do stuff around your house and get ready for Sunday, and I'm going to be monitoring it for another commercial.
call 800.
Alrighty then. Looks like the screen just keeps bobbing up and down. You don't need to see that. It's just my hand bobbing up and down. Hopefully you don't really see that. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, YouTube. Hopefully this will be blanked out.
SAP.
Nope, still commercials. Just hang in there, you guys. I gotta straighten this out anyway. I didn't want you to miss this. It's like on a loop. So it takes about 4 hours to catch the show. My goodness.
ASAP.
Also, I'm going to be putting up a thing on the worst place to be, the 5 worst places to be in case of a zombie apocalypse, but you can use this information for any type of problem. Martial law, whatever. It's a good heads up, and I'm going to try to run that in between the commercial. Here we go.
With hard-hitting talk radio, GCN. Great Talk Radio starts here.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. This is J.R. Moore and Ann Morrison, substituting for Dr. Bill DEAGLE here on Genesis on the NUTRA medical report on Friday, the 15th day of June. We do have more to talk about regarding this Fukushima radiation thing, and you have it looks like about 9 points here to go over regarding mitigation of this problem. So let's just jump right in there. Steps to take to avoid exposure to fission products.
Yes, Dr. Bill is especially concerned because he's really worried about reactor number 4. In Fukushima, the fuel pool there contains both fuel rods and spent fuel rods, and the building is compromised. And so if that fuel pool should end up on the ground, the water would probably drain out and the fuel rods would probably lay on top of each other, and there could be an extremely powerful atomic event. So these are what I want our listeners to do, and some of them are put in a way so that you'll remember them. And one, avoid dancing in the rain, and that's because the water vapor collects on the small dust of the radioactive particles, so the nucleus is radioactive. Wear personal protective equipment on your head and body. Minimize your time in the rainfall. Now, you want to wear head protection in particular, such as goggles and the NIOSH 95 medical mask, until the rain washes. Now, what we have here in the Midwest is we have thunderstorms, and the tops of those thunderstorms go up to 50,000 feet. So when it rains, it washes the radioactive particles out of the air. But until that happens, you want to prevent radiation from entering your eyes, your nose, and your mouth, because radiation inside your body can do much more damage than the radiation outside your body.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the second one is do not drink rainwater. Rainwater that is collected after a nuclear event should be disposed of in storm drain cisterns and shallow pits. Do not build your house at the bottom of the hill. Water runoff will contain radioactive contaminants. Direct water runoff to a cistern or a low spot or storm drain. Do not let it soak into your garden. 4, get a radiation detector. Radiation cannot be seen, heard, felt, tasted, or smelled. 5, take off outer garments prior to entering a home. Use outdoor shoes and indoor shoes. Do not let your child hug your leg prior to removing your outer clothing, dropping them into a plastic bag for washing, and rushing to a vigorous shower. Dispose of PPE properly. Disposable masks should be put into a container marked radioactive. Do not attempt to reuse disposable masks. 6, take a vigorous shower prior to hugging your loved ones. Work up a thick lather of soap prior to rinsing. Persons with long hair are more likely to catch radiation in their hairdo. Consider cutting hair. 7, protect your garden spot with plastic. Place a plastic Quonset-style cover over your garden spot so that rainwater will run off to the sides. Dig a trench to collect the runoff away from your home and garden. 8, avoid the dirty dozen foods. Now, these foods are known to collect pesticides inside them. And so no matter how much you wash them, you cannot get rid of the pesticides.
Right.
And they will likely collect radioactive particles. These foods are hard to clean. There are several government contracts being let out today to study the uptake of radiation from the soil. The following vegetables are known to take up bacteria from soil: tomatoes, lettuce, spinach, and hot peppers. 9, keep your nose off the ground. Avoid free-range meat and eggs. Strontium-90 and other radioactive particles are ingested when cows and chickens graze. Strontium-90 is known to bioaccumulate in beef and milk and can be ingested by humans. The grass does not contain the radioactive particles. Grasses are not known to take up radiation, but the cows eat the radioactive particles when they eat the dirt along with the grass.
That's good information, Anna, and it's a very important 9 points there, and I hope people were able to get that. Are these posted at Dr. Bill's website?
I believe he did. He said he was going to update them, and he asked me to send them to him.
Okay, great.
He wants us to do as much as we can to warn people that there could be a large plume coming across the Pacific from Japan any time now. He doesn't know when, and the people in the nuclear world don't know when. They just know that they have a very dangerous situation. Reactor number 4 at Fukushima is very hot, and that means radioactively hot. So they can't even get people close to it.
Well, it is a dangerous situation, and it's not even close to being resolved and could get very, very bad. Now, I'm looking over what he wrote here, his letter. Did he mention what kind of radiation detector he took with him? Inspector Alert. There we go. Does he install for those for sale his website also, the Inspector Alert detectors?
Yes.
Okay. Well, people ask me about that, and I get emails and questions about where can I get these devices. You go to NUTRAmedical.com. Do not put the www in front of it. Just NUTRAmedical.com, and you'll find the inspector alert detectors on sale. And hopefully, we just give you some peace of mind if you're not being irradiated. If you are being irradiated, you've got a decision to make whether to stay where you are or to escape the radiation, don't you, Ann?
What they teach us in environmental engineering and in emergency management is time, distance, and shielding. So you have a short period of time after a nuclear event. Of course, we'll have 3 or 4 days before the radiation comes across the Pacific Ocean. We like to think that we live in a castle. That we don't think about things falling on our homes. But this radiation is different.
Right.
It's going to fall on your home. Your roof is going to become contaminated. Sometime you're going to have to get up there and wash it off. I lost my train of thought, John.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. It's easy to lose your train of thought sometimes. We do have the bottom of the hour coming up here soon. We'll have Robert Felix coming on and talking about his cutting-edge work that he's been doing about climate change, which you and I talk about a lot also. Climate change has already taken place and continues to take place. What's been broken is the 5-year agricultural cycle that men and women involved in raising grains depend on, which is in that 5-year cycle that there'll be 4 good harvests for every 1 bad harvest. They buy and lease land, they buy and lease equipment, they buy seed, fertilizer, and pesticides and herbicides based on that being a reliable fact of life, that every 4 seasons will be good for every 1 bad one. That cycle is broken, and Robert Felix will have, I'm sure, some fresh insights as to what's going on, why it's going on, and what we have to look forward to in the not-too-distant future regarding climate change. This is affecting everybody. You might be an urban dweller and have never been in a cornfield or planted a tomato, but it affects all of us because the reduced harvest will translate into increased expense for all the food. Here's our bottom of the hour break. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Well, we're back, and I was going to run something else while we're waiting. The 5 worst places to be. This guy's saying it's a zombie apocalypse, but let's see. And it's called the Zombie Survival Guide. And I'm going to have to lower the other. Oh, it's going to be difficult. Let's see what we got here. It's so slow. So I'm going to bring it up. Okay, here we go. By the time I get back, it'll be time to listen to the rest of this. Let's see. Let's turn this down. Hopefully it'll be down all the way. Alrighty then. Look at this, and I can go.
Have you ever argued constantly with your friend that the place you want to go during the zombie apocalypse is just stupid? Well, I'm here to settle the argument, and I'm going to tell you the 5 worst places to go during the zombie apocalypse on today's episode of ZMZ Reloaded. A while ago we talked about where you would go during the zombie apocalypse, and you guys stirred up a lot of conversation on the subject. So much conversation, in fact, that I just had to make this video. So right now, I'm going to tell you the 5 worst places to go, so listen up and pay attention because you might just be surprised. Number 5, rooftops. Rooftops at first seem like a great idea. I mean, why wouldn't they? You're up high, out of harm's way, and you're safe from any threats that are on the ground. So I mean, why is it a bad spot? Not only do you have the obvious threat of zombies making their way up to the top and you having nowhere to go, but you also have the elements of Mother Nature, like extreme heat or cold weather, rain and wind. And then what about food? Because when you run out, you're going to have to come down. So sure, it might seem like a great place to survive, but ultimately, not a good idea. Number 4, sporting goods stores. We all have that friend that's always like, I'll go to a sporting goods store because there'll be a bunch of weapons to choose from and I'll be able to get rations. While that might sound great, it's also really stupid. Think about it. Whenever you ask someone where you would go during the zombie apocalypse, almost 90% of the people say a store of some kind. And a sporting goods store is a store. Yes, there's a lot of weapons to choose from, but you're also forgetting about the people that might already be there, or the people planning to go there. And these are the same people that are fighting for the same thing you are. And some of them aren't so friendly. I mean, if you're in between a bat and someone trying to grab it, do you think they're just going to be like, oh, no, here, you have it. Bitch, please. And what if one of them is infected? Then you just got a breeding ground for zombies. So sporting goods stores, great for weapons, bad overall. Number 3, a grocery store. Remember earlier when I said people think a store is 90% of the time? Yeah, a grocery store is a store. Oh my god, shocker. Yes, there is food galore, but how many people do you think are going to that same store to get food for their family? The answer is a lot. Hundreds?
Okay, let's stop that. And we're going to come back. He's probably going to be back any second now. So, let's go back to the NUTRA. Let's raise this up.
Or call 800-518.
Okay, they'll be back in a second.
America's #1 source for independent talk radio for over a decade. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. This is J.R. Moore and Han Morrison substituting for Dr. Bill Deagle here on Genesis Network on Friday, the 15th day of June. And Dr. Bill's website is NUTRAmedical.com. My website, I have my own radio show on Republic Broadcasting Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Central Time. My website is thelibertyman.com. There's a link on my links page to Ann Morrison's site. Her website is homeland-defense 4 U.com. And we're discussing the nuances of dealing with radiation coming from the Fukushima, Japan nuclear plant disaster, I guess you could say. It appears to already be the worst nuclear accident since these devices, these reactors have been in operation for about half a century or so. Would it be an accurate statement, Anne, that this is the worst event since we've had civilian use of radiation, nuclear material?
Yes, they finally admitted that it was the worst event. Originally, they had thought that they would blame it on Chernobyl as being the worst, but
Right.
they have since retracted that. And when they come out with their estimates, they always get higher. And of course, this reactor number 4 is a very it's of concern. There is luckily we've been very lucky. The number of earthquakes has fallen dramatically since April 11th. Now, if you remember, on April 11th, 2012, we had an 8.6 in northern Sumatra, an 8.2 in northern Sumatra, and a 7.0 in the Gulf of Mexico. I think you remember the 7.0. I think Dr. Bill felt it. But luckily, after that, and in fact, we think that probably the 8.6 or the 8.2 near Fukushima or in Indonesia may have contributed to the deterioration of the reactor 4 building in Fukushima. But in any case, the number of earthquakes that have been occurring since that time has fallen off dramatically. And I mean the number, well, you call it a window, like the last 7 days.
Right.
So it's a sliding window. And what the USGS keeps track of is they'll give you a total count for the past week, for the past 7 days. And that's been falling, it's about half of what it was since the middle of April of this year. So starting in May, it started out about 400, and today it's 200. And,
well, that's a dramatic decrease, yes.
Well, yeah, May, June, middle of June, we're only talking a 6-week time period. And so the number of earthquakes, now these are events that are magnitude 2.5 and above.
Okay.
So they don't count all the little ones.
All right.
So we are coming up to the summer solstice. That will be when the day is the longest. And usually we do expect earthquakes within a 2-week window, and we are within the two-week window.
That's 2 weeks total, or 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after?
Well, I use 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after.
Okay.
In this case, I'm using it as 1 week before and 1 week after because we've had this dramatic decrease in the number of earthquakes. And so I'm thinking that something in the next 2 weeks, there's going to be a massive earthquake someplace. I just feel like this is not normal for there to be such a dramatic drop in earthquake activity around the globe. We are seeing earthquakes, 200 in the last 7 days. In fact, we have one in California, and we have several in Oklahoma.
Right.
But they're of the minor kind, less than 4 anyway.
Okay. And
the San Andreas Fault remains active, and the Popocatépetl in Mexico, that volcano, there's a lot of earthquakes associated with that, and also on the eastern side of the Caribbean and down on the northern part of South America. And of course, there's a lot of earthquakes around Japan, and some of the biggest ones have been out between South America and Antarctica. And the further away the earthquake is from the equator, I use that as what a lever is.
Right.
Archimedes said, give me a lever that's long enough and I can move the world.
Exactly.
So, and the same, I apply the same principle to earthquakes. If they're closer to the pole, then they're more likely to move the spin axis or to have an effect on the spin axis.
Right.
And so we've had two, let me just pull it up here. This is a 5.1 and there were two 5.1s that were down between South America and Antarctica.
Right.
And that's getting pretty close to the Antarctic Circle. We still do have some over in Greece, too. They're watching a volcano that's just off the shoreline of Greece.
Right.
When that volcano erupted about 2,000 years ago, 64 BC, it created a tsunami 150 feet high, and it wiped out the population of Crete.
I bet.
So that's of concern. Seismologists are watching that one too. And of course, Indonesia is always active because it's a very complicated plate that's cracking up, and so it's got a lot of fault lines in it.
Okay. Well, there's certainly a lot going on there, Ann, and USGS is still posting earthquakes 5.0 and above in red, aren't they?
They've changed their... Can you believe this? Do you believe that they would change their setup? In this time of budget crises and everything else, you'd think that they'd let well enough alone.
Uh-huh.
But no, they didn't do that. And so the map that you get now when you go to USGS is they don't seem to post them in red. They're just all the same.
They're all black. The 5.0 and larger are all in black also?
Yes. In fact, there's a 6.0 off of Taiwan that was on the 9th, and it's in black, and 5.8 in Turkey, and it's in black, and a 5.7 in Afghanistan. You know, it used to be that they
all
were
being red. Well, it sounds like they're trying to cut back on the concern people have over these earthquakes.
Well, you know, I say if it ain't broken, don't fix it. And I like their previous webpage because well, for one thing, it did post the larger magnitude earthquakes in red, so it's easy to pick them out. But they have put warning messages on those sites and saying that they will not be using them. So we have to get used to this new website. It does show you the earthquakes around the world, and it does give you a total.
Right.
You can change the total that you see for 7 days, a magnitude greater than 2.5, or 7 days all, or significant days, significant earthquakes in a month, or all the earthquakes in a month. So, you know, that.
And you and I have both seen the United States Geological Survey reduce the severity of earthquakes and magnitude and just eliminate earthquakes altogether from their reporting.
Well, yeah, usually there's a reason for that. And the reason is that sometimes what happens is they have machines now that read the raw data.
Yeah, especially at night, you know.
Yeah, and so, you know, that cuts down on manpower and it makes their work easier. And so the machines often interpret data as earthquakes when it's a slide or a rock fall or a blasting. And you can see this if you go to the Oklahoma earthquake website, University of Oklahoma. It actually annotates
We have a break coming up. Hold on.
Is your whole health constantly challenged? Would you like to age less?
Oh, we're back, but let me, okay. Let me lower this for a minute. Alrighty, let's continue this. Hopefully you can see it. If not, you can hear it. Here we go. Hopefully you can see it. If not, just listen to what this guy says, because you can use this information for anything. To continue.
Are pretty much zero, so just stay away. Number 2, a hospital. For obvious reasons, this is a bad place to go. A lot of sick people will be going there. Most likely they're infected. And honestly, if I have to stand here and explain to you why you shouldn't go to a hospital, then I have no hope for you. But anyway, now to what you've all been waiting for. Number 1 was used in the movie Dawn of the Dead and in Dead Rising, and it is number 1, a mall. Hey, settle the fuck down and pay attention. Any idiot would know that a mall is a terrible place to go to survive. 99% of the food in the mall have to be kept at frozen temperatures or needs to be cooked. There is no weapons in the mall besides the occasional crowbar. Most malls anyway. There are several entrances into a mall, and for God's sakes, they're glass windows. Malls are the number 1 place zombie fanatics like to think that they're going to survive at. And oh my god, is it so cliche, like really. Backup generators only last 48 hours, and more in the middle of well-populated areas. And most cities have their malls set as a danger safe zone. You know, like if there ever was a danger or disaster going on, the city has that place set where people can go to survive, you know, like hurricanes, tornadoes, stuff like that. Yeah, so the mall is the number 1 worst place to go ever in a zombie apocalypse. So there you have it, the 5 worst places to go during a zombie apocalypse. So tell me, guys.
Okay, let's see if we can go to the best places to go. I wish this wasn't so slow. Here we go. Where to go? This isn't going to keep moving around. Aren't That's the high-speed internet going here. Bear with it. If you can't see it, just listen, because it's important. Uh-oh. Forget it. There's a commercial. Let's blank out the commercial.
That buzz, that tingle.
Let's see where he's at. Forget that part.
Turn into a personal dish.
Nope, not back yet. And that commercial's not going to be over yet. So what we'll do is we'll catch it right after the commercial. I try to keep everything commercial free. Oh my goodness. Skip the ad now. Now, where did he go? Let's see if they're back yet. Stop this. Wow, it won't pause. Well, I guess there's no way of pausing this. Okay, here we go.
Number 4, letter U.
Here, he's back now.
Linked on my links page. And we're going to discuss here these last few minutes, this last quarter hour of the show, solar flares. And we had a solar flare event yesterday, June 14th. Tell us about that, Ann.
Yeah, that was an M-class flare. Now, you remember that flares are measured on a logarithmic scale, and so you go from 1 to 10, and the first level is a C-class, and then there's an M-class, and then there's 2 X-classes that are, the X-classes go from 1 to 100.
Right.
So we had an M-class flare, and this was from Sunspot AR1504.
Right.
And it's called a CME. Now, the flare alone, when it hits, and it will hit before the CME will,
Right.
but the flare will ionize the air, the atmosphere, and it will, so we should be seeing auroras, and essentially what it does is it charges up the atmosphere. The storms may be stronger than forecast, for one thing. Now, the CME, when it hits, it's due to hit at 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow here in the Midwest. And what the CMEs do is that they are magnetic lines of force. They are a cloud of a very complicated magnetic field, and not an electromagnetic field, but just a magnetic field. So it interacts with our magnetic field. And what it does when it hits the Earth is that it pushes our magnetosphere towards the Earth where it hits, and then on the other side of the Earth, it pushes our magnetosphere away from the Earth. Now, the magnetosphere, because it's magnetic, will take some of the electrons from the atmosphere with it, and there's a pullback then effect of those electrons, and those electrons accelerate when they return to the Earth. So on the opposite side, on the dark side of the Earth, from the CME, what you'll see electron disturbances, and these can be just as powerful as the magnetosphere disturbances on the sunlit side of the Earth. Now, what the CME does, it does 2 things. things. One, it's a magnetic field. When a magnetic field, that is our magnetosphere, passes through a conductor, for instance, long transmission lines, it induces a current. And so what happens is that current may be going with the current that the power companies are putting out, or may go against it. So you're likely to experience brownouts or spikes in your electricity. And those spikes can be powerful enough to burn out your electronic items, such as televisions and other electronic items that you have in your house. The other thing it does is it creates ground currents. Now, ground currents are the reason that we ground our electrical equipment and why our plumbing is grounded. Because if you have a ground current and it comes upon something that is not connected to the ground, then that ground current will come up into your building. And we've had some trouble with power plants, both nuclear power plants and coal-fired power plants. And what will happen is that the transformers will burn out. Now, I think you remember that in Ottawa, Canada, that happened, it must be 15 or 20 years ago, and caused the big blackout that went down into New York State. And the Canadians figured out, well, it's because of the long length of their transmission line, that's why their transformers got knocked out. So they went in and they put isolators every 100 miles.
Right.
And the United States, they considered it, and then the people that are in charge of power lines said, no, we're not going to do that. So the United States is more vulnerable to CMEs, at least as far as their electrical grid goes. And a strong CME can, or a CME that hits at exactly the right spot on Earth, can take down the public power lines, can take down the grid, as they say. So if you're not prepared to live off the grid, and in some cases, I've heard you say, John, that when some of these transformers go out, the lead time on replacing them is months.
Well, right now, under normal conditions, it takes 3 years to order and take delivery of one big transformer. They're not made in the United States. They only manufacture 100 a year, and there's literally thousands of these at risk. I need to, in fact, tomorrow's morning's mail, and I'm going to mail you some of the new Faraday bags that I carry for sale at my website. These are specially engineered bags that have a very thin aluminum sheet in them with protective sheets on either side of plastic that will protect electronic devices, radios, telephones, laptops, and so forth from the effects of solar radiation and electromagnetic pulse from bombs as well. So I'll lose about tomorrow morning, and you should have them Tuesday or Wednesday to help you protect your equipment.
Well, I'll certainly do that. In fact, I may even carry my my cell phone inside a bag.
That wouldn't be a bad idea. I'll send you a selection. There's cell phone size, iPad size, and laptop size. I'll send you several of each, and then you can use them to take care of your equipment.
That would be great, John, and I appreciate your offer. If the power grid goes down, then you need to be able to live off-grid. Now, unfortunately, if you don't have good grounding at your house, most building codes insist that you have at least your water pipes, your cold water pipe, grounded.
Right.
But if you have additional antennas, for instance, if you're a ham radio operator like you and I are, John, then you also need a ground for your radios, because if you don't have that, these ground currents will actually back up into your house and burn out your radio equipment. So and it doesn't take much for that to happen. I mean, I was told that even the cord that goes to the microphone on a ham radio will create enough current to burn out the radio. So you want to detach your microphones. I like to put my radios and my electronics on a UPS. A UPS is an uninterruptible power supply.
Right.
And if you have one that's online, then that means that it has a battery inside of it that it keeps charged, and you will be able to continue to operate for Oh, maybe an hour or 2 hours, depending on how big a UPS that you have.
Right.
If you don't have a UPS, or if you have just a regular UPS, then as soon as the power spike comes through, it will shut down. Now, it will protect your equipment, but then you won't have any power unless you have a generator and some way of capturing the power from the generator, like a battery. You need an inverter. No, you need a converter and then an inverter and probably a bank of batteries to get you through the time. Now, John is talking 3 years.
Right.
I mean, that is an astonishing length of time for public power to be down.
Actually, it'd be a lot longer than that. They only make 100 a year to replace the ones that have been used up in normal usage. So we're actually looking at a lot longer period of time, possibly decades.
John, I've got a generator, and you've got a generator, and you've got batteries. I don't have batteries yet.
Right.
And I'm prepared to run my generator, whatever it takes. Now, people are going to need ways to refrigerate their medicine, and in the summer, you're going to need a way to stay cool. Now, what I did was that I bought a portable air conditioner. It only heats 200 square. It only cools 200 square feet.
Right.
But it can be run off a generator, whereas a whole house air conditioner probably will not be able to be run off a generator. Now, these generators, these backup generators that you get on the market, and they come out and install them, you have to understand that they're just backup generators. They are not generators that are going to last any length of time. They will probably run for about 300 hours.
Right.
And
We got music coming up here. I think we're done, Ann. Thank you for your time. Dr. Bill should be back in his chair behind the microphone next week. You'll have a great weekend out there. Be safe, and we'll be back next week.
And we're back. Alrighty then, let's finish the report we have going on with even though it says zombie apocalypse, it's okay. You can use this information almost for anything. So let's, let me lower this. I'm not sure if someone's coming on or not about the meters. He's supposed to. So we'll see in a moment. Here, let's switch this around. That's how slow it's going. Alrighty. Okay, let's get him going. Still echoing, I hear the boom, boom, boom.
What? Where are we gonna go? What's up, guys? So by a raise of hand, how many of you have ever gotten into an argument or discussion about where you'd go during the zombie apocalypse? This guy right here. Yeah, pretty much every zombie fan out there has gotten into that argument. Do you go as far north as you can into the cold, harsh environments? Do you go south towards the fertile lands of plant life? Or do you just go somewhere else? When the zombies start taking over, you need to really think about where you're going to set up your camp. Whether it's permanent or just for the night, location means everything. You can't just go camp up in a tree and expect everything to be fine. No, you gotta find a well-structured place to camp. Do you think Rick and his gang would have made it nearly as far if they didn't find the farmhouse? No. Would the people from Dawn of the Dead have survived any longer if they didn't find the mall? No. Would President Obama have won the election if he wasn't black? No. So you see, your survival skills are only the half of it. The other half is where you decide to hold off. So to aid you on where you guys should go for the zombie apocalypse, I got 5 ways that can help you decide if a place is good or bad. So for number 1, you gotta find a place that has a low population, like farms, prairies, rural area. 2, the surrounding area has plenty of resources, but not just food, materials also, stuff like wood or scrap metal. 3, your spot has some sort of surrounding protection, like fences and stone walls. 4, your spot isn't very well known. Places like grocery stores are well known. You ain't gonna want to go to those. And 5, your place is not a one-way in, one-way out kind of place.
Yeah, well, that just means zombies can only come in from one way. You're stupid. Fact, fact, fact.
How that bitch? First of all, this isn't Call of Duty Zombies. When those zombies get you overrun, and they will, you just made your own death sentence. Believe it or not, that and going to a place that's not well known is one of the biggest arguments I get into people with. Anyway, those are my 5 tips to help you determine whether a spot is good or bad. So follow those rules.
Alrighty then. Now we're back. One last time. What information? Hopefully you can hear most of it. Let me get him off of here so I can see the camera. Alrighty then. You have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and I'll see you again later today with your regular news update. Take care.